and preserve the money and be able to, have a...
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're doing the right thing. And for those of you who don't understand what the red pill is, it's a reference to the Matrix, and the Morpheus character gives the Keanu Reeves character a pill to take, and when he takes the pill, he is able to come out of his coma, wherever he's in, and live in the real world. And that's what's happening when a lot of people basically educate themselves. They read my material, and they realize that they've been living in some fantasy world, and now they're in reality. And yeah, you're doing the right thing. I mean, you keep educating yourself, and and keep trying to get into precious metals and get out of the dollar, and tell other people about it, educate other people, because the more people who can take these pills, these red pills. I mean, we need more people to wake up out of this slumber and understand what's going on. Because, that's what it's going to take ultimately to change this country. I mean, we are headed in the wrong direction. They are steering this bus over a cliff, and if we're not going to go over that cliff, we need to have enough political will. There's got to be enough people that understand what's going on so we can alter the trajectory of this bus and get them to change course. And so more people have to figure this out, because the politicians have to think that there's some there's some people out there that will actually appreciate a change of direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? In fact, I'm doing what I can. I've been telling all my friends and all the family members that I have. And in fact, the best thing I could do, I had the idea of, because I make features, so I had the idea of making a documentary about it. I go have a meeting with my lawyer. It's a big law firm, very important lawyer. I sit down with him. I'm having a conversation. I'm telling him about what I want to, what the documentary is going to be about and what I think is going on in this world and everything. And what was shocking to me, when I started to just give him the basics, like, for example, like the Federal Reserve is a private bank. Simple as that. And he did not know that. And this is my lawyer. And I was absolutely shocked, and that's when I decided to...
Well, most people don't know that the Federal Reserve is private. But, of course, it doesn't act like a private company. It's been captured by the government, and it's run like a government agency, even though it is, in theory, a private. And, in fact, the reason that it had to be private was because the Constitution did not authorize the government to print money. And since the Fed was given that power, it had to be a private company because the federal government had no power. They couldn't do it. But, of course, initially when the Fed was created, all the Federal Reserve notes were backed by real money. They were backed by gold. They were backed by commercial paper. It wasn't simply the engine for inflation that has now become. But anyway, hey, thanks for the call, and glad to have you aboard as a client.
I just had one question. You were talking about stocks and everything. Is there anything that you think I should diversify from? Maybe take some of that money that I put into the Perth Mint and maybe go into some stocks.
Potentially, but look, I would discuss that with a broker. I have about 10 minutes left of the show, so potentially you can talk to a broker about other things that you can do besides just having it all in precious metals. But there's not that much money there, so there's not really that much to do. But anyway, thanks for the call. I think we have two more callers online, so that's about all we have time for. So if you're thinking about calling in, wait till next week. Let me take the last two callers. Matt from Ohio.
Hello, Peter.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, it's great to talk with you. I'm a big fan. I suppose you didn't get into economics to build a fan base, but you can count it at least one. So there's that. A couple questions for you. First of all, what do you think about, as far as Asian markets, it seems that a lot of their economies have been built on exporting to the U.S., and there's some fear that they're going to have trouble rebuilding because of...
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, that's something that I write about extensively in my book, and I talk about the myth. I mean, sure, right now they are using their productive capacity to produce products for export, but the productive capacity exists. They don't have to export what they produce. They can consume what they produce themselves. And the real wealth is the production. That's the economic growth. Consumption is simply the benefit. You produce something, you get to consume it. In fact, consumption shouldn't even be included in GDP. 72% of our GDP is consumption. But, when you produce a product, that goes to the GDP. And then if you consume it, if they count it again, then they're double counting it. Production is the key. That's the real wealth. And the capacity is there. And it's simply, retooling or flipping a switch And, they have the machines, they have the factories. They don't have to produce exactly what they're producing now. They can produce something different. They can produce what their consumers want. They don't have to produce what our consumers want. But there are some, right now, there are certainly some problems around the world. Because remember, America owes a lot of money to a lot of people, and we're broke and we can't pay it back. And so a lot of people are suffering because they lost money loaning money to us. But ultimately, these losses will pass. This is a financial crisis around the world. It is an economic crisis in the United States. The economies, the surplus nations that are producing, that do have the factories, that do have the savings, will continue to generate production and savings, and their economies will ultimately benefit by their no longer lending money to us and no longer exporting to us. It's our economy that suffers because we're off the global gravy train. We don't have the productive capacity anymore, so if the world doesn't supply us with goods, we just have to go without the stuff until we can figure out how to make it ourselves, and that's not easy. And if the world doesn't lend us their money, then Americans can't borrow money anymore because there's nobody to borrow from because we're all broke.
Yep, I certainly agree with that. I was just wondering if it would be a number of years yet before the Asian markets have to restructure their production to do. Cause I get the
I don't think it's going to take long. Look, remember, at the end of the Second World War, we had all of our factories making bombs, right, and jeeps and tanks and fighter planes. It didn't take these factories long to retool to make washing machines and refrigerators and automobiles. It happened quickly. And, we had 10 million men under arms working in the Army. It didn't take long for these people who lost their jobs. Remember, when World War II ended, the people in the Army were unemployed, right? But they didn't stay unemployed for long. They found other jobs. And the same thing would happen in China. Somebody's going to lose their job in one company, and they're going to get another job. It's going to be quick, and factories will be able to retool rather quickly. It is not this big disaster for the rest of the world because America is broke. It is a big disaster for us because we're broke.
Good point. Okay, very good. Next question. You talked a lot about going into precious metals. Living in the United States, I have a concern that at some point precious metals will be confiscated because
Yeah, I share that concern. I mean, that is one of the reasons that we are encouraging people to take advantage of the Perth Mint program that we have here, where we're buying people physical precious metals stored in Australia, because I think it's less likely that the U.S. government is going to confiscate it if it's not in this country. I don't know how they can physically require you to bring gold back from Australia and give it to the government. I guess if the gold is already in this country, they can probably force you to turn it over. I mean, certainly if they can put a government agent at every bank, and when you go to your safety deposit box, they can seize it. But if you physically have gold stored in Australia, I don't think the U.S. government has any jurisdiction to force you to go to Australia and bring it back.
Right. Now that kind of segues into my next question. I kind of looked at the Perth Mint a little bit, and there's been some commentators who suggested the Perth Mint may have loaned out a little bit more of its.
Well, no, they don't loan out any of their gold. So, I mean, they're not in the lending business. I mean, they're in the mint business. They make coins and bars, and so the money in the Perth Mint program is available to be fabricated, and so your gold and silver that you have is not sitting there, in a specific bar with your name on it in a specific part of the vault. You have unallocated metal, but your metal is somewhere in one of their facilities, and when you want it, you can get it. Now, right now, what's happened and what's caused some people to jump to the wrong conclusions is if you want to get your metal shipped to you and you want it shipped to you in coins, there's a long waiting list. Not because the metal isn't there, but because the coins are not there. They have to make the coins, but there's such a huge demand right now for small quantity coins because demand for gold and silver is booming all around the world that there's a long wait to get it because it physically takes them a long time to make it because it's not sitting there already made. Because the Perth Mint doesn't mint it. That's the point. It's just unallocated, and that's why they can store it for free. And that's why there's no insurance, and that's why there's no shipping. So you save a lot of money, but you give up a little. And what you give up is that if you